Tapaturang sa ati kina matambos toko bata kay pura-pura. Tanto sa ati kumay nawang ni Karabi, ni Peliutaki, era bunila ang katumbukos. Sa tambit sa ati kumay na nomunipon walo maniobiti. Sa may labi sa nakamunanga ni mata nito. Kamunanga sa kay Vallebu, ray tiyo sa na president din no na mata nito obiti. Vallebu sa ito matalebu. Ray tiyo sa na ngunit turang na tuwi madwata, ito kay Mbalata. Kamunanga sa ati ko na iliulo ni mata nito, Prime Minister ni mata nito obiti. Malilibu sa ng Gorbarua, rating ito sana ngunit turang na tuwi na bato. Nondra kamuna nga sa ati ko na beta dini, mga minister na laman ni Boseado ni Martin Itobiti, sa kamuna nga sa ati ko may balilibu kumbuna, pero sana ngunit turang na buni palu na tuwi kamba. Kamuna nga sa ati ko may balilibu imburin basanga, pero ngunit marambala rutin de kechi na turang na buni palu. Kamuna nga taliti nga may na mati ni tubewe kani, nga na tobata. Kamuna nga sa may labeti ni ko sa may ngalobi sa iti kina nomuniado sa iti umay, na ponobiti. Kamuna nga sa pa binatay kina na yalo binaka, kaya na nomunilo mandonu. Muni may tiko na ponobiti, na bunibe sureti, na madha mbimbe la kobi, ake mami pa binani uni sa tandumbula na singa ni kuwa. Kami nga sa ibaretaki, ni pa binaka, sa ibaretaki ni mami ndoka, rokoba, nomuniado sa ati umay na singa ni kuwa. Lele sa na kana kamunanga, ano itagin ni na vingomi sa ati ko. Katale sa ingalobi sa ati ko, niado sa ati umay na singa ni kuwa, na bunita bimbimbi, sa ati ko sa akina, na ponua, ni sa may tiyo kinani ko. Sambala mo na bosa ni kamunanga. O sa patamber na kena bosa. May tambe sa ati kina kena tebe liliw ni belitaki, kina kena matinitu, kina kena liw na kena mo regatu.
Wala yung kamasakit ko na kamunanga ba kuturan. Kamunanga rin kalong-kalobi. Kamunanga sakit yung nibi Tokay. Kamunanga sakit yung nibi langit, nibi bakaroko-rokotaki. Karama yung kalobi sakit yung nabulang yung Tokay. Kaya sakit yung may nasigang ni kuwa. Sa kamunanga ba kuturan sakit yung nibi Nobiti. May baliliw, may mataliw. Ang naturang na ito yung madwata. Ito kayong pula tengah ni, presid tak ninong tapan. Kano na kamu nga bawa turangan ililu ni matri tu, ang goro-gorua, ang turangan na ratu, tinabat. Abi tadi ni baka minista, saat itu saya kena siang ni kuah, mau bagan jalan tinatawag sa katung lusong ko lang-ilangi dere, sama yang kalau bisa katung na bulang Tokay, ere sa katung minang mundo matasa. Tak kamu nga bawa turangan sa katung ni matri tu, tolu banua, kamu nang bawa turang ketika may kumbuna, ngon turang na bunyi balu na tuikam. Sa kamu nang bawa turang ketika may bunyi basanga, ngon merambal do kutu deketi, ngon turang na bunyi balu. Sa kamu nang bawa turang sa ketika may bunyi masyaba, mati ni tu gangga do kanyo tobat. Sa labi sa kanan nomor bos ni kamu nang, sa labi na matambos sila mo kay burubura. Rasati ko sa kanaka na matinding kitaki. Pero sa kati ko may nasingan kuha. Dalang ko tumukoso. Kamay bagan din tinataka sa kati ko nasingan kuha. Nalo ko turanga. Nayalo ni Binanumi. Kamay sama sa kati ka nabubalelebu. Kamay bagan din tinataka sa kati ko kuha. Nakasabalebu nalo ni Binanumi nalo ko turanga. Sala bewana kalau na nomro kamnanga. Sombo sa katu mena no viva kalau katataki. Kalau kata sa katu biti. Kalau kata sa katu na tamay sota. Rugikan to malu na tang kita yang baki. Tapi lama di bakal yabu. Saya na matin kan tamali wan tonu sa katu na kamunangan ni banwa. Mana? Hindi na ubura. Amdo. Nasa baliabu.
Yang kona unisa sebudi sakina. Nimbula ni mata binasa may nang wana marama. Marau saka na buno abiti. Nomuni yalo saka tiko maya na singa na nome ala masaka tiko na singa endintai. Kaya yang kona sa alo suwete ka matamuni. Ni sakin da bagi sakin na bunga bunua. Yang nomuni butu ko sa may nandal ni soso buat turang abiti. Dahil sabu-sabu sa iba nito nilamay kay Mami, kinaloy kay Mami. Ni Mami to kakarakoba na bengarabi ni sa bengarabi kina. Yan na benga no sa oti me ala masaka tiko endintai.
Honorable Minister for Education, the Assistant Minister for Rural and Maritime Development and Disaster Management, members of the Diplomatic Corps, participants of our indoor gathering today from the region, and also our national participants. Nisambul Binaka. I'm delighted this evening to provide some welcoming remarks for our distinguished guests. Ms. Mami Mizutori, Special Representative of the United Nations Secretary General for Disaster Risk Reduction, and accompanying her is the Chief for the Regional Office for Asia, the Pacific of UN Office for DRR, Mr. Marco Toscano Rivalta. Ms. Mizutori, your presence with us this evening is indeed humbling and significant, knowing that you have carved time out of your busy schedule to visit Fiji and our sister nations here in the Pacific. We are indeed privileged to welcome you to Fiji and the Pacific. I'm equally delighted to welcome the presence of members of the NDMO and Red Cross families across the Pacific and New Zealand, Australia, the United States of America and Malaysia. We have accepted our humble invitation to witness, observe and deliver training, a suite of preparedness and response activities. Ms. Mizutori, we all understand and are fully aware of the various devastating humanitarian crises occurring in different parts of the world, yet you've crossed the equator and several time zones to be with us tonight, showing us that in your capacity as head of DRR, you're just as equally concerned about us in the Pacific. Our battlefront is the climate crisis. and our greatest weapon here in Fiji and across the Pacific is our resilient spirit. I'm glad that you'll be able to witness the firsthand over the next few days what we are preparing. Ms. Mizutori, during your stay, you'll be exposed to how natural disasters have exacerbated inequalities here in Fiji. But as the UNDRR has encouraged us with this year's theme, the Fiji government and its partners will do our best to fight the inequality for a resilient future. Ms. Mizutori, ladies and gentlemen, government through the coordination of the National Disaster Management Office with member agencies of the National Disaster Management Council, the private sector, regional and international partners has heard the call to action by the Sendai Framework for Disaster Risk Reduction. The 2023 National Disaster Awareness Week will see the dedicated action focused on tackling underlying disaster risk drivers such as the consequences of poverty and inequality. The Awareness Week, in addressing this, is to curb the destructive power of hazards by stopping them from turning into disasters through careful and coordinated planning that is designed to reduce people's exposure and vulnerability to harm. In particular, we are looking to stop earthquake and tsunami hazards from turning into disasters. I also take this time to sincerely thank the various partners of government who have extended both technical and financial support to allow the 2023 National Disaster Awareness Week vision become a reality. I strongly encourage us all here tonight to visit the various awareness exhibitions and live drills, but more importantly, share the key messages of disaster preparedness with our families and our communities. Fiji and the Pacific cyclone season is just days away. And although we cannot prevent disasters from happening, we can greatly reduce their impacts and the inequalities they bring by simple acts of preparedness. And with those few words, I welcome Ms. Mizutori and you, our partners from across the Pacific and the globe. And while you may be here to witness and participate in the 2023 National Disaster Awareness Week, please also find some time to enjoy our warm Fijian hospitality and, of course, a bowl or two of kava, network, build relationships and friendships. Thank you. And dhanyavad.
And disaster management, distinguished members of the Diplomatic Corps, Pacific National Disaster Management Office directors, representatives from Fiji, and international first responders, representatives of the UN system here in Fiji, ladies and gentlemen. Bula Vinaka to all. Thank you for this very warm and serene welcome that I have received from you at this moment and since our arrival in Fiji last night. I extend my sincere appreciation to the government of Fiji and in particular to the Honorable Sakiasi Ditoka, Minister for Rural and Maritime Development and Disaster Management, for kindly inviting me and my team to this opening reception on the eve of the National Disaster Awareness Week. Fiji has made indeed significant strides in its disaster risk reduction efforts, which is about better preparedness and, importantly, prevention. Prevention of making sure that disaster risk does not turn into devastating disasters. And this week holds immense significance, especially, as the Minister has mentioned, the cyclone season is approaching and more severe cyclones are forecasted for this coming cyclone season. So this is an opportune moment to address many of the most pressing issues of disaster risk reduction. Just last week on Friday, on 13th October, I had the honor of celebrating the International Day for Disaster Risk Reduction in the Philippines under this year's theme for this day, fighting inequality for a resilient future. This theme of inequality, fighting it, and bringing in inclusivity transcends the boundaries of a single day's commemoration and resonates deeply with the findings of the midterm review of the Sendai Framework for Disaster Risk Reduction that concluded this year in May, when the member states, by consensus, adopted the political declaration for the midterm review, and the government of Fiji was represented by the Honorable Minister Ditoka. The political declaration underscores a fundamental truth that no one is safe from the threat of disasters until all of us are safe. And this theme highlights the urgency of addressing the disproportionate impact of disaster on vulnerable countries, communities, and people, a challenge that resonates here in Fiji and across the Pacific region. Inequality in climate and all disaster risks is a stark reality. The poorest often bear the brunt of disasters. This is the case in all countries, but strongly here in the Pacific region. Because of its vulnerability to climate risk, as the Minister mentioned, a risk that is brought to the region not because of its own doing, and this is the tragedy. Unequal access to resources and information and inadequate infrastructure exacerbates the suffering of the marginalized when a disaster strikes. And after a disaster, it takes vulnerable communities and people much longer to recover or never, and they are driven further into poverty. The impact of disasters is not solely defined by the force of nature, but also by the inequalities that exist within our societies and within our global community. Therefore, disaster risk reduction is about building more resilient societies, and this starts by addressing inequality and ensuring that no one is left behind, regardless of their socio-economic status, gender, age, or physical abilities. And to achieve this, the most vulnerable countries by climate risk must have enhanced access to both climate financing and disaster risk reduction financing, a reality that has not become a reality but needs to become a reality. And that is why all countries need to continue calling on developed countries to increase their assistance to the small island developing states, including here in the Pacific region, to ensure adequate funding for disaster risk reduction and climate adaptation. And this is why we believe that the early warning systems that reach early action, that lead to early action, again needs to be enhanced everywhere on this planet, including in this region. The region already has its Weather Ready Pacific initiative, which brings enhancement of monitoring and observation of the changing climate. And we believe that the UN Secretary General's initiative, Early Warnings for All, can complement this regional initiative by making sure that the early warning systems in all of the nations in this region are inclusive and multi-hazard. Finally, to be inclusive, we must not forget the crucial role of civil society, including organizations led by women and persons with disabilities. These organizations provide essential expertise in identifying vulnerabilities, reaching those most at risk, and closing what we call the last mile. And through this, these people are also empowered and can come out of their vulnerability. We know that with the right decisions and actions, we can protect every life from disasters. And the UN system is here to support all governments and all non-governmental stakeholders so that decisions and actions that are taken are truly risk-informed. I'm looking forward to spending these coming days with you during this important National Disaster Awareness Week, and I thank you very much once again for your warm welcome. Vinaka Vakalevu. Thank you very much.
Hello,